Hello, classmates. Today, let's learn about the evolution of iOS system icons together. From iPhone OS to iOS 12, iOS has a history of 10 years. This operating system has experienced the increase in the size of smartphones, the trend of flat visual style, the addition of built-in smart assistants, and other trends. This video will take you through the changes in the icons of the main built-in applications of the iOS system. Let's start with the map icon that has the most stories. From iPhone OS to iOS 5, the thumbtack on the map icon marks the location of Apple's headquarters. The runway-shaped road on the right side of the thumbtack is the so-called infinite loop. Inside the loop are Apple's office buildings, and outside is the parking lot. As Apple abandoned Google Maps and switched to its own map in iOS 6, the thumbtack was removed from the map icon in iOS 6. It was changed to start from the headquarters and go westward. Interestingly, the route shown in the icon is not a feasible route. Just by looking at the icon, it is now difficult to see that this is not a crossroads. And it seems like failing as soon as starting metaphorically. It is considered by netizens as the best mockery of the poor accuracy of Apple Maps. In iOS 7, the icon was directly changed to starting from Apple Park, the new headquarters. This icon hinted at the location of the new headquarters at that time. Since the new headquarters has now been completed, the icon in iOS 11 directly depicts the corner of Apple Park. iPhone OS 3 added a striped background to some system application icons, and this continued until iOS 6. The phone icon was of course among them, but in the later trend of flat design, the phone icon returned to its original simplicity. The Messages application also had a striped background added in that same way. Before iPhone OS 3, the bubble of the Messages icon had the words SMS, short message service in it. As iPhone OS 3 removed the SMS words, the application name was changed from text to messages, and the bubble expanded by one circle. After that, iOS 5 had the iMessage function, but it did not have any impact on the icon. The next change was that it became one more circle larger in iOS 7, looking quite inflated. From iPhone OS to iOS 6, the camera icon has been making small detail adjustments. In iOS 7, instead of flattening the lens as expected, the icon became a SLR camera. But in fact, the icon in iOS 7 contains some light and shadow details. The two thin lines, the ring in the middle, and the small yellow dot all had different shadow effects. The camera icon in iOS 11 has reduced some details and is more rounded. The sky in the background of the Photos icon has been undergoing subtle changes. From iPhone OS to iOS 6, the version in iOS 7 has been used until now. Just like the Photos application, the sky background before iOS 4 has been undergoing slight changes. In 2007, Steve Jobs introduced the first-generation iPhone, with the concept of Internet Communicator plus Phone plus iPod. The music function among them was naturally called iPod, and the icon was also an iPod. After going through 4 generations of iOS, it was finally renamed Music, and started its journey of color changes. Apple Music that came with iOS 8.4 changed the icon's color scheme again, and has remained the same ever since. The calculator icon is ranked first among the most tangled icons in iOS. It has always corresponded to its UI style. That is, the icon looks exactly the same as what it looks like in the application. The calculator icon has hardly undergone any minor detail adjustments, but rather major adjustments. The UI design of the first-generation calculator almost copied the calculator designed by Dieter Rams for Braun. Dieter Rams is also one of Steve Jobs' idols. Before the flat design trend, The clock icon also underwent some light detail adjustments, but its main pattern remained unchanged. But the icon of the iPad version in iOS 6 is definitely an exception. This is also the first time the clock application came to the iPad. Its design copied the clock design of the Swiss Federal Railways. The main graphic of the App Store is an A shape composed of a pencil, a brush, and a ruler. But in the latest iOS 11 version, it became three-finger-shaped cookies. However, the A-shape image is much more impressive than the pencil, brush, and ruler, and it still maintains its recognizability. This is probably the process of people gradually becoming lazier. From clearly marking milk, eggs, and bread in iOS 5, to not wanting to write words, and then the horizontal lines gradually decreasing. The Notes application follows that by the example of the Reminders application, and the horizontal lines are getting fewer and fewer. The Voice Memos is a new function in iPhone OS 3. The microphone in the icon is the same as the one in the interface. In iOS 4, the icon was flattened in advance, but the interface still showed a realistic microphone. In iOS 7, the icon directly became a waveform image, and the recording interface was also changed from a microphone to a real-time waveform image. The settings icon has also undergone light and shadow detail adjustments. In iOS 6, the teeth of the gear became a bit rounder. This is also the first gear that can rotate during a mobile phone upgrade. In iOS 7, it became a gear with rings. The black part in the iOS 11 version is darker, less complete. The design of two decorative icons for the home pages of e-commerce apps together. First, open Adobe Photoshop software and create a new canvas. Create a new group. First, let's draw the first medicine box icon. The first step is to create a rounded rectangle, set its size properly, and select an appropriate color. The second step, create another rounded rectangle, and set its corresponding size and color. Then create another rounded rectangle, which is slightly smaller than the previous rectangle and has the same color. Align the three icons, and then combine the two rectangles with the same color. The fourth step, create a rounded rectangle, change its color to white. Place it at the center of the rounded rectangle created in the first step. Copy it and rotate it 90 degrees. In this way, the icon of a medicine box is drawn. Next, let's continue to draw an icon of a coupon. The first step is to create a rounded rectangle. Set its corresponding size and adjust it to an appropriate color. The second step is to create a circle in the rectangle, and click Subtract from Shape. The third step is to copy 4 more circles and adjust their corresponding positions. The fourth step, use the text tool to enter the symbol of the Chinese yuan. Select an appropriate font, set the color to white, and adjust it to an appropriate position. The design of these two decorative icons for the home pages of e-commerce apps is completed. Classmates, see you in the next class.